facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. You cannot subsidize irresponsibility and expect people to become more responsible. It takes considerable knowledge just to realize the extent of your own ignorance. Much of the social history of the Western world over the past 3 decades has involved replacing what worked with what sounded good. People who enjoy meetings should not be in charge of anything. The welfare state is not really about the welfare of the masses, it is about the egos of the elites. When you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. The most basic question is not what is best, but who shall decide what is best. The least productive people are usually the ones who are most in favor of holding meetings. Rhetoric is no substitute for reality. Socialism in general has a record of failure so blatant that only an intellectual could ignore or evade it. If you have always believed that everyone should play by the same rules and be judged by the same standards, that would have gotten you labeled a radical 60 years ago, a liberal 30 years ago, and a racist today. Ours may become the first civilization destroyed not by the power of our enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense they are teaching our children. It is hard to imagine a more stupid or more dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. What is history but the story of how politicians have squandered the blood and treasure of the human race? You will never understand bureaucracies until you understand that for bureaucrats, procedure is everything and outcomes are nothing. Intellect is not wisdom. If you are not prepared to use force to defend civilization, then be prepared to accept barbarism. Some of the biggest cases of mistaken identity are among intellectuals who have trouble remembering that they are not God. The more people who are dependent on government handouts, the more votes the left can depend on for an ever-expanding welfare state. You don't get to decide someone else's truth. People who have time on their hands will inevitably waste the time of people who have work to do. Prices are not just money, they are information. Too much of what is called education is little more than an expensive isolation from reality. Freedom has cost too much blood and agony to be relinquished at the cheap price of rhetoric. We should not expect to live in a world where everyone agrees with us. People who are very aware of their rights are often very unaware of their responsibilities. The word racism is like ketchup. It can be put on practically anything, and demanding evidence makes you a racist. The real minimum wage is zero, unemployment. Morality is not just any behavior that one happens to approve of. The beauty of doing nothing is that you can do it perfectly. Only when you do something is it almost impossible to do it without mistakes. Envy was once considered one of the 7 deadly sins before it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name, social justice. What is ominous is the ease with which some people go from saying that they don't like something to saying that the government should forbid it. You can't have freedom without responsibility, and you can't have responsibility without freedom. There are people who will never understand the difference between helping the poor and subsidizing dependency. The past was not perfect, but you can't build a future by demonizing it. If you don't believe in the innate moral depravity of human beings, just look at the internet comment section. Freedom is not simply the right of self-expression, but the right to live responsibly and make choices. You can't educate people into being equal. You can only train them to act like it. In politics, the truth is strictly optional and usually avoided. Cultures are not just different. Some are better at promoting human flourishing. The biggest challenge after success is shutting up about it. Too many people today act as if the past should have been judged by today's standards. We always hear about the rights of democracy, but the major problem in a democracy is the responsibilities of citizens. There are many things that we can afford to do without, but truth is not one of them. If you are not prepared to deal with the consequences of being wrong, you are not prepared to lead. When people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination. The market is not perfect, but compared to government, it's a genius. Virtually every error of modern liberalism is based on the belief that intentions matter more than results. If you want to see what government efficiency looks like, look at the DMV. The vision of the left is not that people are equal, but that they should be made equal by force. Competition is a painful thing, but without it, progress slows. There is no way of making people equal without making them equally miserable. People who pride themselves on being anti-racist often see racism in everything except themselves. There are no magic answers, only trade-offs, compromises, and consequences. Government is an institution that spends what it doesn't have to buy what it doesn't need. The biggest differences between the rich and the poor is how they spend their time. Moral indignation is a standard tactic of leftist intellectuals to avoid having to explain themselves logically. Some ideas are so stupid that only intellectuals believe them.